Hello, everybody, and welcome to ToRAISE Questions, the Doula podcast, and welcome to spring.
Yes.
Hi, Therese.
Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone. And yes, spring, though, we forget what spring really means. It means it's really warm one day, and then very cold and snowing another day, and then it's warm, and the daffodils come, the daffodils come out, and then you see them covered in snow, and so it's not time for spring clothes yet.
No, I know.
It's just, yes, it is coming. I saw some trees in bloom like yesterday, and I had to stop my car.
I saw a cherry blossom that was like in full bloom.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm Sarah Allen Short. I work with ToLabor. I'm a doula. Therese is Therese Hakoon. She is executive director of ToLabor, and she is a doula, a midwife's assistant, a mother, a teacher, a friend, a super woman.
And so are you,
an
Sarah.
Expert, even though she hates that term. So this is our podcast. This is episode 40, which is kind of crazy.
I know, it's wonderful.
And we're getting really, we say this a lot. It feels strange to say, but we have a lot of listeners. So we have a great sponsor right now. If you're interested in sponsoring, please email ToRaiseQuestions@gmail.com.
We would love to promote your product or your services, and we have an introductory promotional price going on for this, and so please don't hesitate to consider.
Yeah.
The beauty of a podcast ad is that it's not like a TV commercial, it's not like a newspaper ad or a radio where you only hear it or see it one time. People are listening to these podcasts. I mean, when I teach a workshop, somebody may not know about the podcast.
And then they go back and
listen.
They
go back starting at episode 1, so they may hear this in months from now or a year from now. So it's always new.
Yeah.
It's always being put out there. It's a great way to advertise something.
So just email me at ToRaiseQuestions@gmail.com, and we'll fill you in on the details. I also, before we get started, we have sort of 2 mini topics today, or a question and a topic. I want to direct you guys to ToLabor.com. I almost said ToRAISE Questions. ToLabor.com. We have a whole ton of workshops going on this year.
We do.
Have a new workshop coordinator that is awesome, and she's working with lots of people to schedule workshops all over the country. If you go to ToLabor.com, you'll see there are a bunch there, big cities, small cities, all over the country, East Coast, West Coast. Midwest. But we also are happy to bring one to you if you want to help us get attendees. If you live in an area where there isn't one.
Specifically, we're looking, I'll put in there, New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, New York State, those states. If you're there or in the South, like Florida, or over in the Southwest, New Mexico, Arizona, Utah, Colorado.
So if you're in one of those places and you'd like to bring a ToLabor workshop, ToLabor is a really different kind of doula training organization, and we know that you have lots of options. And you might be listening to this podcast because you are already a doula, in which case a ToLabor training, whether you've taken one or not, is a great refresher, inspiration. But if you also may be listening to this podcast because you're interested in birth work, or you've maybe been doing it informally, ToLabor is really different. I encourage you to check out check out a few of your options and look at their philosophies and look at, learn about them. ToLabor is midwife based, or based on the midwifery model of care, rather.
Right, exactly. And evidence based. And we're really about how to be truly people who are holding the space with a compassionate heart and deep listening, and about social rights, about civil rights and human rights. It's a really strong perspective on that. This is a social justice issue, and I would tell you that everyone who takes the workshop, and I could say everyone, though I know there are those rare, who would completely agree that it is a very, very moving and, in so many people's cases, life-changing experience.
Yep. It was for me.
Yeah,
and here I am.
I know.
And so check it out. Come join a workshop. If you've been listening to these podcasts at all, you have a pretty good idea of what our philosophy is and what our style is. So we just mentioned a little while ago our sponsor. Our sponsor for this podcast right now is a really cool organization called Placenta Benefits, or PBI. Their website is placentabenefits.info. Their mission is to educate women and professional communities about how placenta ingestion can help postpartum recovery. And they also have a training course. What's the website for the training course?
It's placentacourse.com. This is where you can go for postnatal education and training. It's the PIBU.
PBIU.
Yes, sorry. Or PBI University.
Right.
And it's a really good place for you to be trained and learn
on placenta
encapsulation, right, and all the benefits around it.
Which is a great, I think, supplementary career for doulas, is to get into that. And I have to say, I really want to do a podcast on placentas. I can't remember if we talked about this, just the two of us. I feel like I shouldn't, because now we have a sponsor that's a placenta, but I feel like we should have before.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to do it.
Yes.
All right. We're going to do a couple of smaller topics today. And the first one, we had a question. Yeah?
No, go ahead.
Okay. We had a question emailed in that you're going to answer.
Okay.
This is from a doula in training. What are your feelings on virtual doulas? I'm a doula in training, and with my work schedule, I won't be able to provide full doula services to women by attending births, but I would like to offer virtual doula support by being available by phone, text, email, or video conferencing. I'm not sure how effective this is. Any advice would be much appreciated.
Okay.
So, Therese, what do you think about virtual doulaing?
I first want to say I think it's a great question, and I appreciate that you are reaching out to ask the question. I respect that. To be completely honest, I think that it is not the way I envision, nor do I want to envision doulas doing this kind of work. I think that the whole point of a doula is that human connection. It is that we are bringing back that one-on-one support instead of virtual. Everything nowadays, I know, myself included, we use virtual communication. We're doing it right now by doing a podcast. But when it comes to the experience of birth, we are trying to humanize this again, not make it the technocratic model that it so often is in everybody's birth experiences who are birthing in the hospital. That said, I think that there is a time and a place for that occasional virtual doula care where you may have a really good friend or a connection, somebody puts you in touch with who does not live in your exact community, where you could reach out and give information via phone calls, emails, talk to them about information. But I did this recently with somebody who lived in the Boston area. I was put in touch with her via one of her people. And I gave my initial input, but what I also strongly recommended was that she get a doula, and was able to give her the names of a few that I could recommend in that area, which is what she ended up doing. But we stayed in contact with each other periodically just because we had somewhat of a connection established at that point. But I always made it really clear to her that she had her doula now, that her doula was the one that she needed to have this connection with. I was just another, I now was the friend, not the doula.
Right.
And so and Sarah, I think you've had experience like this also.
Yeah. So I had a friend in Texas who wasn't, her first birth had been very challenging. This was her second birth, and she wanted to try natural again, was not interested in hiring a doula for a number of reasons, which honestly I don't remember at the time, but I do remember that I said, you should just hire a doula. And we sort of joked about, she said, you can just be my Skype doula. And it was sort of a joke. And I don't think either of us really thought I was really going to be her her virtual doula. And then she went into labor about a week early, and she texted me, what do I do? She thought she was leaking. She couldn't tell if it was just cervical fluid or like a very high leak. And, I suggested a couple positions. And actually that reminds me, we forgot our tip.
We'll go back
today. I have a tip related to what I told her. And we just started texting, and she was, texting and talking on the phone here and there. And she didn't that ship had sailed. She wasn't going to have a doula.
Right.
And she had a very fast, intense labor. And, I provided minimal support. And what was funny is she was so grateful when it was over and talked about, and I just kept thinking, man, you have no idea. The worst doula in the world in person would be better than the best doula in the world via text. And she was so thrilled, and everything went fine. And she had a relatively fast, uncomplicated labor. And we hit a point where I had no idea what was going on because I'm not close to her husband.
Right.
And I didn't have her husband's information. And so basically what happened is, she was in labor for 4 hours. And so we were texting for the first 2, and then she got to the hospital and she was in transition. And
darn, she didn't text you.
Right. And as she shouldn't have been, but I was like, is she been rushed off to surgery? Right. Is she in agonizing pain? Is she cuddling her new baby?
Right.
So it was not ideal.
No. And so I think going back to the question is, I think theoretically, it sounds like, well, if I can't be there, here's what I can offer instead. No, really help that person find a doula who can be physically and emotionally present for the experience. Because in your case, Sarah, it was a short labor, and I have no doubt that she was incredibly grateful to have you were holding her hand. You were connected to her as a friend as well. So that's what made it very wonderful for her. But if that labor had gone on and on and on, you can't be there. You can't see. And I'm sorry, we really want to reserve this for certain emergency sort of situations, but not as a regular practice, because to me then we might as well just say hook them up to the electronic fetal monitor, put the IV in, put the epidural in. Those are all mechanisms also that help make a labor happen. So I really appreciate your question, and glad that we had the opportunity to discuss it, because I do not think you're the only person who has thought of this. And I'm not the end-all to end-all, but since you asked me my thoughts on this or advice on it, there it is. Preserve it for really select experiences, but not the way we would prefer to see people practice as being a birth doula. It is about being present for someone.
Yep. Okay.
So thanks.
All right. So our next topic, I think our more main topic for this, is working with hospitalists. I have thought about this issue a number of times in my career as hospitalists become more prevalent.
Right.
And we'll talk about what they are in just a second. Okay. And then also the case study we just did last week with Anne.
Right.
Heavily involved a hospitalist in a role that
we'll talk about.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I think we should talk about this week is hospitalists. So first, let's talk about what is a hospitalist.
So a hospitalist is a doctor that is employed by the hospital, thus their name.
Although they can also be employed by a practice.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think, they have to be, that's a good,
Yeah, because there's a practice in town. One of the things we're going to talk about. Yeah.
Okay. That they're not independent. They are not part of a practice, though, per se.
Right. They don't see patients.
No,
they don't get to know patients.
Exactly. They're just at the hospital.
Right.
And thus the name hospital. So they can be employed by the hospital. Then a private practice can pay them to be on call for them so say Dr. Susan is on call tonight from 8 o'clock in the evening until 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, and even though and she has something really important that she wants to do, or she's feeling sick, or she's tired, or whatever the case might be, and she doesn't want to be on call. Instead of asking one of her partners to take her call, which she could do, she can then get in touch with the hospitalist and ask the hospitalist to be on call for her, and they pay the hospitalist for that time involved.
Now, the more typical way I've seen it was the first way you said, which is that they work for the hospital.
Right.
And so they're just floating. If somebody comes in with appendicitis, the hospitalist goes. If somebody comes in having a baby, the hospitalist goes. If someone goes in with, anything that's needed, they are not specialists. They are not OB specialists.
But some have have more experience in some things than others.
Right. So there's a practice in our community that made a very controversial decision that the practice was going to move over to hospitalists on nights and weekends overall. So in this case, the hospitalist was a specialist in OB, which helps. And they were employed by the practice, not the hospital. So if you had your baby basically between 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, you were going to get maybe not even your doctor, maybe one of your doctor's partners.
Right.
But the hospitalists were not in rotation for appointments. So if you had your baby on a night or weekend, you were going to get a hospitalist that had been chosen by this practice, which was very pro natural birth, and they were very friendly towards unmedicated birth.
Somebody you had never met
and had never had a chance to meet, and didn't choose when you were choosing this practice, and that's where the controversy came in.
Right.
So I think that part of what I want to talk about with hospitalists is be aware of this.
Right.
Depending on where you're usually working, if you're working in a lot of home and birth centers and occasional hospitals, you may not have run into this yet.
Well, and even here's the first part of it is you should make your clients aware that hospitalists exist, because I know people who will avoid going to a medical college, a medical university hospital, because they don't want a resident.
Right.
And so they choose a private practice because they are going to get one of those 8 to 15 doctors to be at their birth. The question you want your client to ask their care provider is, do you employ or do you access hospitalists? And under what circumstances would that be? And do I have a choice in whether a hospitalist is used or not? Because I have talked to people about hospitalists. I'm sure you have as well, Sarah. They have no idea that they exist.
Right.
And so they didn't choose the medical school hospital because they didn't want a stranger coming in.
Right.
And in the end, they get a practice that has a hospitalist who is like a resident to them.
Well, and honestly, a hospitalist is going to have more overall experience than a resident, but an OB resident is going to have more. And we have, I'm biased because we have a teaching hospital in town that has excellent residents that are learning how to deliver breech and VBAC. They have a great VBAC rate, and I would choose a resident from that hospital over a hospitalist any day of the week, personally.
So that's the first part, they should inquire, because a lot of people don't know this. And doulas, if you do know it, then you need to inform your client. You can say, are you aware that this practice does employ a hospitalist, and that it's probably something you want to discuss with your care provider about how and when that would be accessed? Because in this case that you brought up, they said all nights and weekends. Well, some only use it when they need it.
Right,
so,
occasionally.
Yeah, they need to figure that out with the different circumstances.
Right. And I think that what I would encourage my client to do, what I do encourage my clients to do, is find out if they use hospitalists, find out how often they use hospitalists. I don't know any midwives who use hospitalists in my community.
No, I'm not. But I think what can happen is midwives in hospitals have a doctor backup. They have to, and usually are employed or working together with them in however that fashion turns out to be. But that doctor may not be available for if there's a situation, and the hospitalist would be
the backup doc, and that's actually happened.
Yeah, and that was in Anne's
case
story.
Study. Yeah. So that's a good point. But I think there are a couple of OBGYNs that I know who do not use hospitalists and who swear to their clients that they will be there no matter what because they're just on call 24/7 all the time. And I would say one of them actually, in my experience, shows up. And one of them tells every client, I will be there. And if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, she's usually sending a partner or a hospitalist. So I just sort of, based on what I know as an experienced doula about individual providers, give them some questions to ask. I'm not usually going to say, oh, Dr. So-and-so, she lies. She's not going to be there. That's what I'm thinking in my head. But I just say, like, ask, when's the last time you weren't at a birth?
Right.
You know, how often, how many births a month do you not attend? Because...
And why, what would be the circumstances that you would not be able to come to my birth? And what would be...
Right.
Who would be there in place of you?
Right.
And then the other thing she wants to find out, if they say, well, my partner or one of my partners will come, is they need to find out, does that partner send a hospitalist?
Right.
So it gets, it used to be practices were small. They were 1 to 3 people. Then we've grappled all these years with practices turning into 5 to 8. Now we have 8 to 15.
Yeah.
And then now on top of it, we have hospitalists.
Right.
And so there's really a lot for a person to try and negotiate and figure out who will be there with me, and the person who can help direct them with those kinds of questions is you, the doula.
Yeah. So I'm going to admit to a bias because I think you can't change a bias unless you admit to it. And I have a bias against hospitalists.
And why is that, Sarah?
Because of experiences I've had. I have been at births with hospitalists where I felt like the hospitalists were not... First of all, they didn't know my client. They didn't have the knowledge about normal birth, that
normal physiological
birth, that I felt their chosen care the doctor that my client had chosen had. I feel like they are quick to just rush through. They're going to be called in if something, they're not going to, if you go in with a client and your client's in heavy labor, rocking and rolling, the nurse is going to handle it. The hospitalist is going to show up at the end and catch the baby just like any other doctor. If you're not following Friedman's curve, which I know has been debunked by ACOG, but is still very common in hospitals.
Of course it is. It's 16 years before that's going to change.
You've been in here for 5 hours and you've only gone from 5 to 7 centimeters. Something's wrong. The hospitalist is going to come in and say, okay, let's do PIT. And the reason I'm saying it, and what I loved about Anne's case study is that was not, it went against the fact that she was describing the hospitalist actually reaching in and feeling the woman, the size of the woman's pelvis and saying, no, you have enough room to get this baby out.
And worked with her for all those hours.
Now, yes, that's a complicated story. Right. We don't know that was maybe the best thing. But
just to use your...
Yes. So I'm saying, I'm kind of owning, and I hope, I'm a little embarrassed to do this because I shouldn't say that I have bias against anything, but I do. I have a bias against hospitalists, and I would, my clients who are with practices that I know use hospitalists, I try to plant the seed for, here's a couple practices that don't use hospitalists. Here's a hospital that doesn't use hospitalists.
And yet I've also heard through other doulas that working with a hospitalist has been awesome.
That's awesome to hear.
That in our own community, I've heard that the hospitalist was just like so interested in what was happening and acted as what the doctor would have been had the doctor shown up. So it's a gamble, but see what I think...
Out of all my births, I've maybe been with a hospitalist like 5 or 6 times. So it's not like I have a huge
but that's a lot
sample set.
Yeah, but that's a lot of experiences.
And they weren't all...
Even though that's not many, it's a lot given that we think it's not going to happen very often.
They weren't all terrible. They were either neutral, they added nothing, or they were negative. There was no positive.
The hard part, though, I feel like in us discussing it also, it's not so unsimilar to the woman seeing Dr. A.
Right.
And loving Dr. A.
Who gets Dr. B.
Yeah, who gets Dr. B
That's
or
a really
C
good point.
or D, who may be just as unequipped to handled the physiological birth that this woman was anticipating with Dr. A.
Right. That's a really good point.
It's kind of...
So the topic we're talking about is working with hospitalists, but really...
It's preparing them for the unknown provider who's going to show up, right?
And preparing yourself for the unknown provider who you can't control. You don't know what their philosophy is. So let's do a couple of practical, let's do some advice. What advice would you give a doula? You walk into the hospital and either you're getting Dr. B when you thought you were getting Dr. A, or you're getting a hospitalist. What's your game plan as a doula?
My thing always has been, and what we really talk about as doulas at workshops, is that you have to prepare your clients prenatally for all their options and their choices. And of course, we just said, and for this situation as well, but that they have a right to be well informed by that doctor, whomever it is, whether it's their unexpected one or a hospitalist, or they're the one that they were hoping for, that this is patients' rights. I've mentioned this in workshops, so I don't know if I've ever done this on the podcast. If you go to the National Institute of Health, which is nih.org, and just put in their search engine patients' rights, you can pull up the Bill of Rights for patients, and it's really informative, and it is something that you who are listening should have, because at one time or another we all are going to be patients, whether it be with complementary modalities or with medical modalities, and you should know what your rights are. Mm-hmm. But this is something you can include in your packet with your clients also, and make sure that you go over this with them, not because we want people to be aggressively fighting, because you know how I feel about that word, but that they feel confident that they do have rights. And so things should be explained, and they have the right, if it's this provider who is talking to them, whether it be a hospitalist or their care provider or their stand-in, they should say, well, can we have some time? Can you explain this? All the things that we've talked about in other podcasts, using that brain. It's
brain being benefits, risks, what are the alternatives, what does your intuition tell you, and what happens if you do nothing? And BRAIN.
Right. And it starts with, do we have time to talk about this? Because if it's an emergency, there's not going to talk.
Right.
We're just just explain to me what you need and let's go.
Right.
But we really need to stress to our clients, and this is so much about our workshop, Sarah, is that it's about helping the consumer not be afraid. It's about the consumer feeling comfortable to use their voice, that it's not that we want them to disagree with everything a care provider is offering, because there are times when it should be done. And, when we go back to thinking about Anne's story, there were, the use of Pitocin was a good idea in her experience. So it's not like, no, you don't want to do Pitocin, but why are we doing Pitocins? Is there a choice here? What is your worries? What are your fears around this? Communication. But the doula can't ask those questions specifically unless there's great rapport going on. But in the end, it's the parent's job anyway to communicate and not be afraid. Yeah. So to me,
and going back to what you also always say, which is it's upfront choice.
It is.
It's, I have the conversation a lot of times with people, I'm not this direct with them, but I'll tell you what I'm thinking, which is that if you have this care provider, if your birth goes totally smoothly, you'll be fine. And if one single thing goes wrong, this person is going to cut you, because that's what they do. Mm-hmm. And so it's about understanding, are they someone who works with a partner? Are they that you don't know or don't like, mm-hmm. or 15 partners? Are they someone who works with a hospitalist? And, honestly, the longer I do this, the less sympathy I have for someone who we have the conversation in prenatal. Mm-hmm. This person works with a hospitalist. This hospitalist that you're going to get might have just come from a ruptured appendix and then gone to pediatric and then gone to a dying person and then come to you. They don't specialize in OB. They don't know you. And then they go and they get one and they're all mad. And I'm sort of like, well, we talked about this. Like, suck it up. You made this decision. I'm getting less and less
kind, caring, and compassionate. I understand what you're saying.
And I don't let them see that. But
no, it's frustration that you're communicating with us, I think, is that we do get frustrated. And that's what I think is frustrating when people are learning from us, from our organization, is we are really saying it is the parent's responsibility to use their voice.
Right.
And that we can point it out. We can make it clear. We can say, these are your options and choices. And you do have the right to say, well, from everything you told me, it sounds to me like maybe this isn't medically necessary right now, and I would like some time before we initiate this.
The woman has the right, not the doula.
No, that's what I mean.
Yeah, I know.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I won't do it at all, but I'd like some more time. And if I need to, initial somewhere that I am refusing this for just now, I want to clarify, not for the whole rest of this experience, but just for this period of time, then I'd be happy to do that. If we could get our clients to communicate, like you said, it's frustrating to you.
Yeah.
But in the end, if you've done your job, you, Sarah, anyone who's listening, that you've communicated this well with your clients, without fire, without, you've got to do this, got to do this, but more like, this is really important.
Yeah.
This is your birth experience. This is why I want you not to be afraid. And they're not bad people. They are not maybe going to be expecting you to disagree with them, but that doesn't mean you can't disagree with them. Right. But be agreeable in your way of communicating that. I've seen care providers go, okay, well, we'll check back with you then in about a half an hour and see where you're at. And maybe they leave kind of irritated because it didn't go the way they anticipated, or maybe they will get more in that person's face, like, no, you really need to do this. Then again, it comes back to the parents. And I know that, women think they're going to be in labor and they won't be able to speak. Well, they can, for one. And two, they do have a partner who can guide and help them. And you, as doulas, will be guiding then the partner to be asking these questions.
Right.
So we're kind of, we started this saying we were talking about hospitalists, which we are.
Right.
But really what it all comes down to is our communication with our clients.
Right.
And how then they communicate with their care provider, whomever that person is.
Right. Yep, it's true.
It really is.
I want to wrap up with two things that have come to mind as we've been talking. One is stay at home as long as possible.
Yeah.
As long as it's reasonable, as long as it makes sense, because this is true in any birth, but if you know you're going to be facing a situation where you're going to get a backup doctor or a hospitalist or anybody that you don't know, you're just increasing your chances of things going smoothly if you can arrive after 7 or 8 centimeters. Right. So, with all good caution, stay at home as long as possible is the first thing. And the second thing is, try everything that you can to get a supportive nurse. And so when you show up, have the partner say, we're really hoping for a natural birth and we'd love to get a nurse that likes to do that, who really enjoys working with natural births.
And I'll add into that one, the other alternative to that, or another way to do that, is before they leave the house.
Yeah.
They call the labor and delivery floor, and you can provide that phone number to them. It's easy to get, and recommend that the partner say what you just said. We're coming in, and we're coming in with our doula, and we're looking for this kind of birth experience. We really would love to have a nurse who is likes to work with clientele, patients, whatever, who want to have this experience. And if they're looking for if they're going to a hospital that has limited access to tubs, like tub rooms
Right. Or showers.
They should say, we really want to be able to have the room with the tub or the showers, just because that can make a huge difference also.
Yep, and this is something you should do in every hospital birth. You should ask for a nurse who wants to work with natural birth, and you should ask for a room with the tub, but I just think it becomes that much more important, because I've definitely been in situations where the doula and the nurse are sort of allied, and the nurse becomes a gatekeeper to the hospitalist or the other provider, and is, it's sort of like the doula and the nurse are on the same team, and you're trying to keep things moving smoothly, and it just makes such a big difference.
It sure does.
Almost every hospital has a few nurses that just love working.
They do.
So anyway, all right. Anything else about this topic?
No.
Great.
Okay. Well, thanks, Sarah, for that. Thanks for the conversation about hospitalists, because it really led us just to, again, the importance of prenatal care and communication,
self-advocacy, blah blah blah,
civil rights,
usual.
and human rights, all of those things.
Yada yada yada.
Yeah. But the whole point, and I say this, is pregnancy, labor, and birth is so that you will become a parent, and so this is all about parenting as well. So thank you,
and have a great week, everybody.